All right. Welcome, my friends, to the next episode in the Red Delta Project podcast and live feed Q&A here on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel, where we take a fundamental approach to health and fitness, giving you more power, control, and freedom over your healthy lifestyle. As always, I'm Matt Schifferly, and today's episode is sponsored by the full range of the entire Red Delta Project library, including books like my acclaimed micro workouts, grind style calisthenics, as well as the entire free grind style calisthenics workout program that goes along with that on the YouTube channel here. And of course, my latest book of suspension calisthenics, how to get the most out of that weight machine that fits in your pocket, aka suspension straps. So speaking of how to get the most from what you're doing in your workouts, today we're covering a bunch of workout programming do's and don'ts, because this is an area that I find people get a lot of paralysis by analysis with, and they really overthink and overdo and overanalyze so much when it comes to their workouts that they just end up kind of running around rearranging the deck chairs on the proverbial Titanic, and they're spending a lot of time and a lot of energy, sometimes a lot of money, trying to figure out how to make this thing all work, and it doesn't really go anywhere. They're just running around in circles. So to get things really set, I want to make one point clear that's going to really help things right off the bat, is that your results do not depend entirely on your workout program. Okay, know that for a fact. Okay, because we get caught up in how many sets should I do, and should I do split training? Should it be upper, lower, or should it be push versus pull? And what about how do I combine this type of training with that type of training? And can I do this every day versus once a week? And all these sorts of things. We get totally confused by cardio first or weights first and stuff, because we think it matters. We think if I get this formula right, then that's going to be the key to muscle or strength or weight loss and all these sorts of things. And 90% of all these choices we're making has almost nothing to do with those results at all. And this is one of the reasons why we get so caught up in these choices, because I've heard from many clients over the years, they're like, I do every stupid little thing. Like I've done full body and I've done split training. I've done it this way and that way. And it never seems to matter. It's like, yeah, exactly. Because it doesn't really matter. Instead, we have to recognize that a good workout routine only has to fulfill two objectives. That's it. If you get those two things, your workout's as good as it's going to get. Stop looking for any more results from your workout routine, because your workout routine cannot do any better than to fulfill these two things. Number one is stability, aka consistency. So can you stick to it? Is this something that you can do and it fits with your resources, your schedule, your preferences? If I say you've got to go to the gym every single day of the week, and you're like, but the gym is 45-minute drive away and it's really hard to get there if I don't work, and if I'm not at the office, and what if I work from home and so forth, then okay, then that may not be a good part of your routine. That's the first thing, is just, can you stick to it? And that's why I'll usually spend so much time with people when they call me up, because I now do the remote coaching through the Grind Style Calisthenics program. And I spend a lot of time working with people, not to figure out what's the best way for them to build muscle or burn calories and stuff. It's just, what can you do? What are you able to do on a consistent basis? What exercises can you do? What skills are you bringing to the table? That's the first thing, is just what can you do and stick with? And that's a large part of it right there. The second, of course, is to have direction. So obviously, when I say things like, oh, it doesn't matter, and like, okay, so I can become big and jacked by doing just jumping jacks? No, of course not, because you're not going in the direction you want. If you wanted to have a particular stimulus for your body to change in a particular way, according to your goals, you need to select exercises and programming to facilitate that stimulus. Of course, absolutely. However, you can do that 1,000,000,001 different ways. It's not going to come from some sort of Da Vinci Code precise combination that you have to dial in as if you're trying to split atoms here. You could literally just kind of throw a dart at a wall and probably hit something that's going to work to at least some degree. So as long as you've got a workout routine that offers some degree of stability, and it's kind of putting you at least in the right direction as far as what you want to work on, that's as good as it's going to get. You can't ask anything beyond those two things from your workout routine. It's just providing that structure. That's it. That is the only job of your workout routine. Your actual results largely depend on how well you execute the workout routine. So if I came to you and I said, okay, we're going to do a total of 100 push-ups a day, you're like, okay, there's my routine, 100 push-ups a day. Will that help me build muscle and strength? I'm like, damned if I know. It has nothing to do with doing 100 push-ups a day. I'm just giving you some structure so that you can have some sort of direction on what you're trying to do. But how you do the push-ups, what kind of push-ups you're doing, the intensity you're bringing to the push-ups, what type of focus and consistency and the skills and the proficiency you're bringing to the push-ups, that's what matters. In the martial arts, this is very, very obvious, because I could tell someone do 1,000 side kicks a day, and if they're like, all right, fine, 1,000 side kicks, and they're just like flinging their foot in the air, are they going to become a better martial artist? No. But if someone who was proficient and they're like, okay, 1,000 side kicks or even 10 side kicks, and they strove to do it with the best side kick they could, and they knew it's like, okay, I'm working on getting my hip over, so that's what I'm working on my side kick. That 10 side kicks a day will make that martial artist a better kicker than the other person just flinging their leg out for 1,000 side kicks a day. So that's the thing to really take home from this, is that we get lost in the details and the paralysis by analysis and stuff of what do I do in my workout in order for it to be effective. And the reality is the effectiveness isn't from the routine. All the routine does is give you a platform. I always use the analogy that a good workout routine is like the launch pad for a rocket. It doesn't do anything for the rocket. It doesn't launch it into space. It doesn't like make it a better rocket or anything. It just says, sit here and point in the right direction. That's what the launch pad does. I don't know if those out listening, I may be showing my age a little bit, but when I was a young kid, my friends and I, we used to have model rocket parties. The cardboard tube, and you put it on the little stand, and you'd let it off in farmer fields and stuff like that. We loved those things. That your routine is just like that little launch pad stand. It's like it just holds it upright and points it in the right direction. That's all it's supposed to do. And the second we push that button, the stand has done its job. But the actual propulsion of the rocket to get it to where we want it to go, that's the engine, that's the design of the rocket, that's the way that we mix the fuels and the engines and things like that. That's what actually gets the rocket up. And so we want to take this perspective of a good routine just gives you that structure to keep you stable and pointed in the right direction. And if you have that, your routine is as good as it can be. The other thing is the routine can literally be almost anything you like and get you there. Split routine, full body routine, work a muscle once a week, work it every single day, do whatever exercises you want, whatever set combinations you want and stuff. You could do cardio first or strength first and stuff. 9 times out of 10, it's probably not going to matter all these different variables. So like a lot of things in fitness, you should choose these variables based largely just on personal preference. Like some people are like, I don't know, I just like full body routines. It makes me feel good. Okay, that's plenty of reason to just do full body routines. And people are like, well, this study said this and this research and my friend did it. So what? Most of the choices we make when it comes to diet and exercise are probably going to be better made off of little more than just personal preference, as long as they are satisfying the basic fundamental principles that we need in order to ensure that they're effective for the result we want. And when it comes to working out, all we need to do is create a stimulus for the functional demand that we want. And we can do that any way that you can see fit. Do it literally however you like. Any kind of exercise routine, any kind of programming and stuff. However, there are several things to keep in mind in order to help ensure that you're doing. So first don't is trying to optimize and perfect, which I kind of was looking at. It's like, okay, so I'm doing this routine, but I'm not quite getting the result I want, or I'm not building muscle fast enough, or I'm not, losing weight, or whatever. It's people are like, I got to optimize it. I got to perfect it. I got to get it exactly right. The reality is you can't expect much to come from what your routine actually is, but do focus on what you can do for that consistency and the stability and creating the stimulus you want. Remember, when it comes to training, the stimulus largely boils down to you gain that which you challenge. Challenge your strength, you get stronger. Challenge your endurance, you build stamina. Challenge your stability and balance, you build stability and balance. Like in my example before with the martial arts, challenge your ability to do a side kick, you're going to improve your side kick. This is how functional training and fundamental process works is you gain that which you challenge. So if you're running 10 miles a day, what are you challenging? What are the things that your body is subjected to as far as stressor? And then is that in alignment with your goal? And this is one of the reasons why I am very selective about what kind of training I do, because most of it out there has nothing to do with anything I care anything about. Like for me personally, I'm not a big calisthenics skills guy. I don't do muscle ups. I don't do planches. I'll dick around with the front lever every once in a blue moon or something. Like, because personally, I couldn't possibly care less if I can do those things. All I personally care about is just making my muscles work hard. And I don't need those to do that. Can they work the muscle hard? Absolutely. But it's a hell of a lot easier to do it without exercises that require a high degree of skill. So why in the world would I possibly do that? If there's an exercise style out there that you don't like doing and it doesn't really mesh with your objectives, unless you have to do it for some sort of a requirement, then there's zero good reason to do it. Absolutely no good reason at all. In fact, there's good reason not to do it, because those things are taking away from you. They're taking away time and energy and other resources that you should be spending towards the things that do matter to you. So your priorities get all out of whack. All right, we'll sip there in my bubbly, and let's get to some of these questions here. Dan is asking right off the bat here. Just a comment, been using isometrics for a couple of years. Thanks for the Overcoming Isometrics book. Thank you very much. And since I've been really going heavier with the Overcoming Isometrics, I've been getting a ton of feedback from people on that book saying like, this is great. It's one of the few resources that they find on like Amazon and stuff to really understand how to apply Overcoming Isometrics to build muscle and strength. So I'm really glad I wrote that book during the lockdown. That was my COVID lockdown project. Received my ISO chain last week. Good. What a game changer. Thank you. Absolutely. And this is also what I've been finding too. Like there's a ton of different isometric equipment out there. Whenever people look into isometric exercises, like I kind of want to get into isometrics. One is buy my book, Overcoming Isometrics, not because it's my book and I make money off of it, but I wrote that book simply because there wasn't a book that just simply laid out, here's what Overcoming Isometrics are, and here's how you do it. Because when I got into it and I started to really get a foundational knowledge base about it, I went on Amazon. I'm like, great, where are the experts who are talking about this and writing books on it? And I couldn't find anything. So I'm like, fine, I'll do it myself. And that's why I wrote that book. So get that book and the ISO trainer from WorldFit, or the ISOFlow from Bulwark, or one of those strap systems. If you've got like a suspension strap setup that you can just basically, if you've got two handles on a length of nylon rope or a strap or something, that'll work perfectly fine as well. The NOSC home trainer works as kind of like a ISO trainer as well. Hell, my first ISO metric equipment was just a bed sheet. People use like martial arts belts sometimes, and that works perfectly fine as well. But if you want to take it to the next level, I do highly recommend the Dragon Door ISO chain. Yes, I know it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but when you consider what it does, it's actually a lot cheaper than buying an ISO rack and a barbell and the plates and straps and all those other things that are way more expensive if you piecemeal it out and takes up a lot more space. I think that's one of the things when people are looking at the ISO chain and they're like, oh, it's like $500. That's crazy. But when you consider what it's replacing, what it's trying to do is replicate the functionality of the classic York isometrics rack, which now if you bought it today would be 3 or 4 times as much easily. So it's, for what it is, it's very good. And if you want to make isometrics a very cornerstone of your program for strength and muscle specifically, you're not using it as a supplement, but it's a big thing, it's definitely worth the investment for sure. Adnan asking, what am I drinking? This is my vice here, folks. The blood of the innocent, antifreeze. No, I'm kidding. It's Diet Coke. That's what I grew up with. Was a diet sodas and stuff like that. And this is always one of the things I think of when people talk to me about nutrition, is that when we're looking at changing dietary habits, so much of our approaches to diet and exercise are grounded in and rooted in what we did in our youth. And I thank the lucky stars that I grew up in a family where we had normal family dinners every night. And I was always told, eat your vegetables. And, a bottle of soda and a granola bar is not dinner. It's, you have a regular meal. You have a protein and you've got your vegetables and maybe a side and stuff like that. I have very balanced meals. So my dietary habits are very much intact because of what I grew up eating. But sometimes I'll run into people who have a hard time eating well. And if I ask them, what did you do? It's like, oh, it was all fast food and candy bars. I'm like, oh, yeah. If that's what you grew up with, that's going to be hard. And for me, it was diet sodas were always kind of a special treat, when I was growing up. If you got a good grade on a test or whatever, instead of having water or something, you would get to have Diet Pepsi at dinner kind of thing. So that's carried over into my adult life, and hence the habit there. But it's something to think about, like, what did you grow up eating and doing? And how is that influencing your habits now as an adult? Gatsu got a question. Hey, Matt, I am thinking about getting a band mainly for training my neck. Around what kilogram do you think would be good? It's hard to say. The thing with bands is it's very, very difficult to say because, of course, a band increases resistance as it stretches, which is both a very good thing, but also a very bad thing, because you're also losing resistance as it comes back. This is one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of band training, even though I used to do it for many years. It was my primary way of strength training, is because of that resistance curve. It's like I've got most of the resistance at the very end, so my muscle is working a lot at the very end, but as soon as I come back even halfway, most of the resistance is gone. I'm like, I don't want half the resistance gone. I want the resistance throughout the full range. Then I got into working a lot with dumbbells. And I was like, oh, this is way better. Like, I've got resistance here and here. I don't have to make that compromise. But I do like your idea for using a band for the neck training to a degree, because you can anchor it to a doorway. You can put it against the side of your neck and stuff like that. I wouldn't do any sort of the movement stuff. I'm a real big fan of using isometrics for when it comes to using working the neck and stuff. So you could probably go with something fairly middle grade band. I'd say somewhere in the middle. Like if you go to the store and they're like, here's really heavy, here's really light, probably somewhere in the middle, or maybe a little bit towards the lighter side will probably be a good place to start. And then you can adjust the resistance based on how far you come away from that anchor point. Let's see, Jason A., what's up, man? How's it going? It's good to talk to you, my friend. Okay, let's get to another don't and another do. Don't, when it comes to your workout programs, worry too much about your weekly routine structure. So as I was alluded to before, like how many times a week should I work this muscle? And should it be full body training 3 times a week or split training? And how should I split it up? And how many different body parts? And what if I train every other day? Of course, then again, if I work my shoulders, should I have a shoulder day, even though my shoulders are getting worked on all the other days? And what about core? I hear they say you can work core every day, and you get too confused. Here's the bottom line. Do consider just what is going to be the best way for you to adequately work the muscle on a consistent basis. So I don't really think it matters very much when it comes to working your muscles on your weekly routine. This is why in the Grind Style Calisthenics program, I have some general templates, but the bottom line is I'm like, dude, just do this stuff however you want, because it's like hitting a nail into wood. As long as you drive the nail in, who cares if it's Tuesday? Who cares if you hit half of it in on Monday and then the other half on Thursday and stuff like that? All you got to do is hit the muscle. And I don't care really how you do it. So if you're adequately hitting the muscle, then the actual weekly structure isn't really that important. So what does adequately mean? Well, we've got the 2 variables, of course, in strength training or neuromuscular conditioning. You've got tension in the muscle and you've got volume. And of course, those two are back and forth. The more tension you have, the less volume you can have, and vice versa. Also, on the other end of that is how much fatigue you're creating in your workouts. If you are pushing yourself really past the point of failure, like force negatives and all these other sorts of things, you're going to need a lot more recovery. So the way I always structure it, because again, I don't even have a regular routine. I just do whatever, whenever I feel like it on a weekly basis. It's my freestyle training approach that I talk about in my book, Micro Workouts. One of the best things I ever did in my workout career is having this freestyle approach, because what that means is that I can work a muscle in the opportune moment when I'm like, I think I can really throttle my back today. I think I can really work it hard. I think I can do a good shot of maybe hitting a PR of how many pull-ups I can do and so on. So then I do it. I don't care what day it is. I don't care if I've worked my back the day before or it's been 5 days. It doesn't really matter. I'm just looking for when can I adequately work my muscles really, really hard? Because that's really all that matters, right? And so if I feel I need to rest, I rest. If I feel I can go, I go. And if that means working a muscle 3 days in a row, great. If it means working a muscle only once a week, great. And this gives you the freedom and flexibility to adequately achieve the objective of your workout, which is never follow the workout plan. Following the workout plan is not the objective of your workout. Your objective is to create a stimulus for the adaptation you want. And when you give yourself freedom to change how you're working out in order to better achieve that stimulus, your ability to achieve the results you want goes through the roof, versus having just some sort of omnipresent overlord of a workout routine telling you to work out when you don't want to work out, or you can't work out when you should be working out. So change things up and work your workouts however you like throughout on a weekly basis. Personal preference is far more potent and powerful than people give it credit for. Hey, Wesley Angel saying, woo, finally caught a live one. Thank you very much, Wesley. It's good to see you, my friend. How's everybody doing there? Julius, let's get to a question here. Just bought another, for a minute there, I thought I was reading the same question again. I just bought Overcoming Isometrics and love it. Thank you very much. Appreciate the support. I've got a suspension trainer that I'm going to use for iso straps. Good, very good. I'm always a big fan of use what you already got, folks. I sell equipment, in the descriptions there. I sell books and everything, but I'm not a fan of like add-on things. Like if you can use something you've already got, do that. Don't rush out to the store and buy stuff you don't need. If you've got something on hand that already can fit the bill, well, definitely do that for sure. It's much more economical and efficient. Anyway, suspension training, they use it for iso straps and combine it with calisthenics and suspension work. Very good. I love hearing this. Let's get to another question. Fitness saying, hey, Matt, any opinion on Boteo? I don't even know what that is. I have no idea. Never heard of it in my life. If you can forward me some information, that would be greatly appreciated. But no opinion because I haven't heard of it personally. So I will say from an oxygen standpoint, living at altitude, that is a big game changer there, my friends. All right, so let's get to another don't. Don't in your routine. Don't always be adding new exercises and equipment and gadgets and new things to do. You can bloat out your workout real quick and easy just by adding a few sets or adding a few exercises here and there. And before you know it, your workout is really big and really costly as far as time and energy. Instead, focus on the exercises that are most important for your goals. And what are those? Well, normally what we're talking about are the exercises that are the most fundamental exercises for your activity. So in the world of strength training, push, pull, and squat, flexion, extension for secondary stuff. But basically anything that's basic push, pull, and squat, aka the boring exercises that everybody already knows, that's probably going to be the best stuff that you should focus on. I'm not saying limit yourself to that, but I'm saying focus most of your time and attention on it. But think of also what else you're doing, like in the martial arts, right? What are the fundamental exercises? You got front punch, you got front block, we got front kick, side kick, back kick, turning kick, or roundhouse as it's often called. Basically, if you can master those basic exercises, you'll get what you want. The mastery of the basics is where most of your results are going to come from. And I've seen this time after time. The people who have the best physiques, the best muscle, the best strength, the best abilities, they're masters of the basics. And then when they ask, well, what about this one arm back flipping muscle up while singing the Star Spangled Banner type routine? And they'd be like, well, that looks cool, but why would I do that? I already got everything I need from pull-ups and dips. So it's a good way to keep the workout focused, because remember, it's all about pointing in the right direction, focused on what's going to be the best for you. And you can play around with new things to see if it brings something interesting to the table. Is a accessory work, but don't let it get overwhelming where it's like, oh, I barely do any of the basic exercises anymore. Now I do all this fancy stuff that I saw on social media. It's probably not going to be the best stuff for you in the long run. No name, awesome name. Hey, Matt, do you have any advice on tips for how to work out through depression? Is this recommendation or recommended, or should I stop? Oh, very good. This is always a very big thing to address, because as I'm learning, writing one of my next books, that we human beings are fundamentally emotional creatures, which is why I'm always saying things like do things based a lot on like personal preference and stuff, because ultimately a lot of our actions and our success and our drive comes from what we have on an emotional level, not an intellectual level. You give me someone who knows almost nothing about calisthenics, but they are ramrod fired up and ready to go, and I could tell them to walk through fire and they would do it. And they're probably going to get 10 times better results than someone who has got all of the bookworm knowledge about how to do calisthenics. But if they were like, I don't know, it's kind of humid today, I don't want to work out, kind of thing. That's what it goes down to. Fundamentally, we are emotional creatures, and our emotional state is a huge influence in our ability to get working out. So with that said, in a depressed state, know that that's going to seriously handicap anything you do, well, in life in general, but especially exercise. I've been there many times myself. I've been in fairly subdued emotional states for one reason or another. And of course, it always handicaps my intensity, my focus, my concentration, and my skill. Do I give up on working out? Oh, hell no, because that would make it even worse, especially with depression and things. So if anything, it's going to, the working out and the exercise is going to give you more of a leg up in helping you to manage and hopefully beat such depression. However, what I will say is, again, I recommend taking more of a playful and flexible, even a creative approach to your workouts. Don't think about what should I do? What's the best thing? I would literally wake up each day and be like, what can I do today? Some days I know when you're really depressed, it's hard to just get out of bed, let alone go to the gym and do like German volume training. So get up, get a good breakfast, start the day off right, and say, what can you do today? Maybe just a walk around the park. Okay, maybe some, curls and tricep extensions on a suspension trainer. A good arm pump makes everything feel better, right? And so you just kind of do a little bit of whatever you can do. And that's going to keep the ball rolling forward and hopefully help you get to a better elevated place on an emotional level. My heart goes out to you. I hope things become a lot better for you. Let's see, what else can I address? Okay, another don't. Don't program hop. Don't program hop. I see this all the time where guys are like, okay, I did 5x5, and then I did German volume training, and now I'm doing this, and then I do that. And it's like every time I see them in the gym, they're doing something completely different. And the thing to understand about this is that it's not so much that I think they're jeopardizing a whole lot by program hopping, because we need that consistency, right? You got to kind of sit put and keep exposing your body to a consistent stimulus in order for that to build up over time. But the real reason why I don't like program hopping isn't because I think you're losing the stimulus. It's because I think most of the changes you make are basically doing the same thing anyway. So you're not really changing anything. It's like I did 5x5, and then I did 3x7, and then I did 6x4, and then I did upper first and then lower, but then I did lower first and upper, and all these sorts of things. Like there's a million ways that we can program our workout and change the details around, but fundamentally nothing happens. You're not changing anything. And remember, your results depend not on what happens on that superficial level with all the details, but what you're doing on the fundamental level. What are you doing to the stimulus that you're exposing your body to? So, okay, it sounds great. So what's the big deal? If the fundamental level isn't really changing a whole lot, what's wrong with changing things around? Yes, however, all of that can distract you from creating a delta in your workouts, aka progression. So if you have 5 different programs that you did in the last 6 weeks, and I was like, okay, but how is what you're doing now more productive, or are you doing things better than before? And you're like, I don't know. It's like, well, then you're just running around in circles. You're spending a lot of time and energy, and the scenery may seem like it's changing a lot, but you're not actually going forward in the direction you want to go towards. You're not going closer to your goals. So what I recommend instead is pick a routine, any sort of thing that you basically points you in the right direction of the stimulus you want and that you can maintain. I don't care what it is. Make it up on the back of a cocktail napkin, just something, whatever. Start doing it for a while. build up that consistency and aim for progression in how you're working your muscles. However, that does not mean becoming a routine slave either, where you're like, okay, I get to the gym, and I see this sometimes with trainers where they're like, oh, okay, they be with a client, they're like, okay, we need 3 sets of back squats, and there's like 1 squat rack in the gym, and they're like, okay, we gotta wait. And meanwhile, the client's like, dude, I'm paying for an hour-long session, and there's like a 5 deep line for the squat rack. And meanwhile, I'm like, dude, there's a million ways you can do a general squat type workout. Let's do some lunges. The leg press is free. The hack squat, like there's 1,000 different ways we can do this. Why are you waiting for that one thing? So change as necessary. Make any kind of changes to your routine if you feel the routine changes are going to improve the 2 fundamental objectives of your routine of consistency. Like, okay, I work out after work, but man, I just can't seem to make energy work, and the wife is calling, when are you coming home, and the kids are upset and everything. So I think I'm better off if I work out in the morning. Good, make that change. Don't like wait 4 or 5 weeks or anything. Just make the change and see if it's better. If you've got something better to do it. If you're like, I don't really feel so good about doing this one exercise, I think I'm better off doing this one, I think I can work my muscle harder with that, then just change it. Just go right ahead. You don't need permission to it. And so change as necessary, change as you like. But always remember that you're not going to get anything more from it unless you're either improving your consistency or allowing yourself to go more in the direction you want to go in. So if, for example, I belonged to a gym one time that did a lot of circuit training. And sometimes guys would come to me and they're like, I like the circuit training, and we got the jump rope, and we got the jumping and the burpees and everything. But they're like, I just want to build bigger arms. And somehow I feel like if I could just sit down and do some freaking dumbbell curls for 10 minutes, that'd be a good way. And they're like, you're absolutely right. That would be more effective, because it's exactly the stimulus they're looking for. So I would say, okay, do whatever the circuit is, but work in or get somehow, just sit down and just blast the hell out of your biceps with some dumbbell curls and call it a day. You don't necessarily need to wait and revamp the entire routine. You just tweak it. And that, my friend, is how you get these folks who are like, oh, this is my routine. It works so well. They didn't start with that routine. They didn't get it off the internet. It's gone through weeks, months, years of evolution and change and development based on what do they prefer and what can they do and how can they maintain consistency. And that's how you get the real routine that's going to get you more of what you want. Excuse me. I've been very phlegmy lately. The weather out here in Colorado has been absolutely nuts. Coming back up, Leroy the man, regarding the band question. Since it creates an overspeed eccentric, pulls you down faster, that I can hypertrophy the joint by doing 50 plus reps. I've read about this from Westside Barbell. Oh, so that's a key point though. However, when looking at band work from Westside Barbell, and I'm assuming this, but I would bet money on this, what they're doing though is they're using bands as a supplement to the resistance of a barbell. They've got racks and stuff where you can attach a band. So if you're squatting, and you've got like 300 pounds on your back, and you've got 2 50-pound bands or 2 25-pound bands, what it's doing is it's taking advantage of that strength curve, but it is having a very slight difference in the resistance to it. Versus if you were to be using bands as the primary resistance. It's quite a different thing that you're going with that. So it's much more about the difference with those. All right, let's see here if we got more do's and don'ts. Don't endlessly research. This is one that gets, because a lot of times when people are looking at what's the best workout routine, what's the best way to do this, of course, the internet is not the best place to find solutions. I always say the internet's a great place for information, maybe even a great place for ideas, hacks and life hacks and stuff like that. Like, oh, here's an idea on how to wax your car better. Oh, that's a great idea. I'll try it. The internet's a great place for raw information and ideas. Horrible place for solutions. The solutions are on your end. You've got to create your own solution. And you can supplement that with stuff from the internet, but ultimately the solution is up to you. So when we go online and we're trying to research in the hopes of finding a solution, it actually takes you away from the solutions because it just gives you more information that it gets you confused over. So don't endlessly research. I always tell people, if you are compelled to research and learn stuff online, learn enough information to take action. Once you can take action, like you see something like, this is a better way to do a push-up. Great, thanks. Turn off the computer, go apply it. Because your experience is going to be far more informative when it comes to understanding what you really should be doing than anything you're going to find online. So that's what you want to find from your quote research, is just give me enough information for me to start taking action. That's all I need. I need the bare minimum to take action on how can I do this? Or you search in like, okay, I'm working out and I feel like my workouts may be a little too long and I'm getting tired halfway through. And someone's like, oh, try working out with less volume, or try focusing on this. Great, thanks, go. Don't endlessly, oh, this guy says do it this way. What does this guy say? What does that guy say? And this guy says this other thing, and blah, 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 blah. No, it's just a complete waste of time. Always remember, my approach is that when there is so much debate about a topic in fitness, someone says eggs are good, someone says eggs are bad, someone says it depends on where the chicken was raised, and all these sorts of things. Whenever we get to a topic where there's so much debate going on, what I've learned from my experience is that because there's so much debate, the reason why there's so much debate is because it doesn't freaking matter. Is because it probably does not matter which way you go. If it did matter, and it was really important one way or the other, the answer would be much more straightforward and clear. But when there's not a clear, straightforward answer, back and forth and up and down and all these sorts of debates going on, chances are very good it's not going to matter either way. So just do whatever the heck you want. If it does matter, it's going to matter for you based on your circumstances and preferences and resources. And the only way you're going to possibly know if it does matter is if you just roll up your sleeves and give it a try. In which case, you're going to get some feedback real quick. You're going to get some feedback of like, wow, this is terrible. I'm never doing this again. This sucks. Or it could be the other side, like when I started with my overcoming isometrics training. And I was reading articles about it, and I was like, I don't know about this. This kind of seems a little wonky. Gave it a try. Within 48 hours, I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a game changer. Totally revolutionized my entire approach to training overnight. That's the kind of feedback you're looking for on things that are actually going to matter, for better or for worse. But most of the time, if there's a lot of debate, just give it a try, and you're probably going to come away with, I did it both ways, couldn't really tell anything. So in which case, just do whatever you want with that. So don't endlessly research, learn from experience, try and use, and that's how you get your real information about how you should be programming your workouts. All right, some more questions here. Tricky trick. Hey, Matt, do you think that dynamic straight bridge with glute ham raise will be adding good muscle to the hamstrings? Absolutely, for sure. Why not? So remember, always the ability for an exercise or program or anything to create a result does not depend on the exercise itself or the program or anything. It depends on whether or not that thing can create a delta from your current circumstances. So, excuse me, will doing 10 push-ups a day make me bigger and stronger? I don't know. What can you do now? What are you doing now? If it's a progression from what you're doing now, yes. Is it a regression from what you're doing? No, don't do that. It's always about creating the delta that your results lie in, not what the actual thing is. There's no magical or valuable inherent thing with an exercise or a program or anything. It's always about creating a delta to the stimulus that your body is exposed to. And if that delta, that stimulus delta is in your favor, then yeah, go for it. Great. Plus, there's a lot of ways you can program those things and change and progress the exercises and the techniques themselves. And then you can really advance things as well. Pull up. That's a great screen name right there. That's awesome. You need a better avatar though. The P is classic, but man, with a name like that, you've got to have something cool in there. Routine to heal a little pain in the right shoulder. It started 3 days ago and is slowly going away. So whatever you're doing that's helping it go away, is just keep going with that. Pain is a terrible thing to diagnose over the internet. And I always tell people, if it's not really going away or healing, then definitely get eyes on it and taken care of. But as always, the standard rule applies. Don't do things that hurt. Pain is weakness. It's also Mother Nature's way of telling us we're screwing something up. And every time you feel a pain while doing an exercise, you're re-injuring it and increasing the amount of time it takes to recover. So do whatever you like, just don't do things that hurt. All right. But yeah, it's always try to get hands-on diagnosis, especially things that are crazy like shoulders. I mean, God, there could be like 50 different shoulder ways the shoulder is injured. And so anything that you find online, you might as well just throw a dart. You're guessing. It's just an estimated guess. Frederico. Hey, Matt, I'm always following your wisdom and doing every day better. Thank you. Thanks for all the dedication to others' well-being. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Frederico. Always coming on and your words of encouragement and support. Very much appreciate you, my friend. Strong and conditioned. Now that's an avatar. Hell yeah. Hey, Matt, always a pleasure to hear your thoughts. What do you think about splitting a push-pull legs format throughout the day and concentrating on one exercise for, say, 20, 30 minutes, 3 times a day? Yeah, I like this sort of thing myself. I do that largely because my schedule is usually kind of all over the place. So I seldom have like a chunk of time that I can dedicate to getting a workout in. I usually find myself with like 10 or 15 minutes here and there. So I do that sort of thing a lot myself. It's like I'll have a pull-ups and bridges, in the morning. And then later in the afternoon, I'll be like, oh, I've got 20 minutes. Yeah, I'll hit some legs. Why not? Legs are feeling good today. So I'm a big fan of breaking stuff up. Again, you just got to get the job done. It's all about the amount of work. We tend to think in 24-hour chunks in fitness, like how many grams of protein a day and how many times a week should I do this and stuff. Basically, if you just took the amount of work that you do in a week and you just got it however you like throughout the week, you're probably going to end up with the same fundamental stimulus. So it's going to create the same result. So it gives you a lot of freedom to do it however the heck you want. And some people are like, no, I like to get it all done right away. And that way it's done and over with. And other people like to break it up and stuff. So you have a lot of freedom to do it as you like. Excuse me. Wesley Angel, knowledge is great wherever you can get it, but having fun and staying consistent will give you personal insight and wisdom too. Man, that is a great quote right there. Love that. Having fun and staying consistent. Boy, if there was ever a prescription for how to have an effective workout in the long run, that would be it right there. Well done, Wesley. Mariano, my buddy, coming on in. It's good to see you as always. Hey, Matt. For the training dues, I feel overcoming isometrics above all benefits is finding what my muscle is needing and working on it to improve its work capacity. Be fit, live free. Yeah, and that's one of the great things about overcoming isometrics, as I talk about in my book, is that there's a lot of debate out there. It's like, does this really build muscle? Does this really help you get stronger? Hey, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't care, because the real benefit of it is improving your neuromuscular proficiency. How well can you use your muscles? How well can you get them to coordinate and knit together to work together? How well can you use them for stability and so on? And that alone can radically improve how well you do anything. Any kind of exercise, any kind of dynamic work. And because overcoming isometrics is so efficient, it's well worth the cost of admission if that's the only benefit you get. And if it also builds muscle and strength and all that other stuff, which I sincerely believe it does, then yeah, there's almost no good reason not to do it, unless you don't like doing it and stuff. All right. Oh, Drop Weight Daddy, Michael Cook. By the way, everybody, check out Michael's latest book, Tempo Maintenance, for those who are interested in band work. He wrote a whole book on using bands for strength and conditioning, and it's fantastic, and you got to check that out. But Michael is saying, Matt, hope you're staying hydrated in this heat. I am. It's actually looking like it's kind of going to rain out there at the moment, but it's crazy. It's like 98 degrees here in Denver. It's kind of nasty. My thoughts to those out there struggling in the heat. I got this nice air-conditioned apartment, so I'm very comfortable here. But wow, we are in hot times, my friend. No Name is asking, how long is my own workout per day? It's very freestyle and flexible, so it doesn't have a particular amount of time. I would say it probably averages about 20 minutes or so, give or take. Like this morning, I did some exercise before waiting for a client. That was about 15 minutes. So it's so flexible. It's kind of hard to pinpoint it down, but I'd say probably average 20 minutes or so, give or take. Excuse me here. No Name, Or let's see, what other questions? Again, you put a hey, Matt, I know it's a question directed to me. Lucas, hey, I see guys who does weighted pull-ups, not taking care about tucking elbows in as you teach, and as more natural movements for the joints. They finish the neck above the bar, elbows wide. Is it risky? No, not necessarily. You can have that scapular stability with a variety of hand positions and elbows and stuff. I just find this is a hell of a lot more comfortable and easier. It's just, again, kind of personal preference. And I feel like I can get more range of motion this way. It's easier for me to get my chest to the bar. So that way I'm not coming only up to here, but I can get those last couple inches range of motion. Always remember, though, a lot of times people will be like, oh, how is this guy big and jacked? His technique sucks and stuff. All you need is time and tension. Those are the only two variables we've got to manipulate. And for hypertrophy, maybe to a certain degree, a high degree of muscular fatigue, you could have crap technique. You could have the worst exercise programming in the world. As long as you're getting that done on the fundamental level, it's going to work. So I personally like to do things the hard way. So narrow, typically, and a bigger range of motion means I don't need as much weight if I'm doing weighted pull-ups, or maybe even weight at all, depending on the progression that I'm using. So it's not so much of like, what is this guy doing versus what is he not doing and stuff. It's like, is it still improving time under tension or time and tension over the course of his training career? If he's got that, then yeah, he's still doing the same thing to his muscles fundamentally. And as long as he's got that scapular stability, he's using his lats to keep things knocked down nice and tight, I think you're pretty much fine for the joints. Should be good. Hey, Bobby, it's good to see you. Good avatar. I love it when that pops up. It's so cool. When I focus engaging my abs, glutes, and legs when doing push-ups, I feel like I just lose tension in my core and start sinking. Won't happen when I'm not hyper-focused. Any fixes? So I'm guessing what's going on is, oh gosh, that is a real good question, because abs and glutes should prevent that from happening. And your legs, lose tension in my core. That should not be happening. that should be the opposite of what's happening. I'm kind of stumped on that one. That's kind of like someone saying, oh man, I fill my biceps with so much tension, but I don't feel it really working my arms, kind of thing. It's very interesting. You may want to just send me a video on Instagram, DM me. I'd love to see your technique on what exactly is going on. But remember, it's not so much about keeping things tight, it's keeping that pelvic tilt. I'm wondering if you're getting a bit more of the opposite with an anterior pelvic tilt, and that's where you feel that sag coming on, maybe. That's a very good question. Interesting. Very, very interesting. All right. What other things can I address here? Let me get to the last don'ts and do's. Don't focus too much in one area of the body. This one's basic workout programming 101. As we all got our favorite areas, right? Arms, abs, glutes, maybe, soleus, whatever kind of floats your boat. But the fact is that we want to make sure that our programs are at least somewhat homogeneous in overall addressing the entire body. It's fine to have an emphasis a little bit here and there, of course, but don't be like that calisthenics guy who does a ton of push-ups and pull-ups and has skinny little legs or weak legs. Don't be that person who's like, oh yeah, my hips and thighs and my glutes and stuff all super strong, but they couldn't overhead press nearly as much as they could with a push-up kind of thing. So you want to have a good amount of balance in your training. Don't spend your entire workout push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, push. I'll do some half-hearted squats. Okay, good, I'm done. Let's get out of here kind of thing. Make sure you're getting a good overall stimulus throughout your whole body. Don't make the mistake that I made back in the day where I thought, I'm a cyclist. I don't need to work my legs. And then soon after I learned, of course I work my legs because I'm a cyclist. There's that idea out there. It's like, well, if I work this muscle and I use this muscle a lot in work or other hobbies, then I don't need to train it. It's like, no, that's exactly why you do need to train it, because I became a hell of a lot faster on the mountain bike once I started working my legs. It's one of the big regrets I had in my training career is that I spent way too much time in the off season in college doing a ton of cardio, and I never did any leg strengthening exercises. I wish I hardly did any cardio, just maybe once a week or so during the off season, and focused on some nice heavy lunges or made use of it. We had, I think it was Body Master equipment in the UVM gym my senior year. They got all this new fancy equipment, great like leg presses and stuff. I wish I made more use of that And it's a good way to go about that. Leroy is asking again, hey, Matt, seen your video yesterday about rest periods. Yes. So part of the reason I'm bringing this up is I did a whole series all last week about things you do and don't need to really worry about when it comes to your workout programming. Check that out. I think there's 4 or 5 videos in the series. Anyway, Leroy is saying, so there's a whole meme about powerlifter hibernating between sets. Yeah, but I can relate. How can I cut back because my workout can last 3 hours? So a lot of the requirements. So the point I was making in that video is the amount of rest time you have depends on many different things, which is why it's kind of a shot in the dark if I'm like, yeah, rest 90 seconds for building muscle or 30 seconds for endurance and all that, because it depends on a lot of different variables. So if you want to cut back on rest periods, one is cut back on how far you're pushing closer to failure. The more you're pushing closer to failure, the more rest you're going to need. I was speaking through email this past week. Someone was asking about some of the stronger guys I'd always reference, like Mark back in the day, who was absolutely a monster. All he did was weighted pull-ups and dips and push-ups. And they were like, well, what was his training like? And one of the things he did was he almost never went to failure until the very end of his workout. He would do like 5 or 6 reps and make it look easy, and he'd stop well short of a high degree of fatigue. So that way he just kept running through the circuit and he built up a lot of volume. And then only at the very end of his workout would he push through those grinding repetitions. So that's one thing you can do. Second thing is when you're talking about workout duration, cut back on the number of exercises you're doing too. So this goes to what I was saying of don't like have too many things that you're doing. Like you pretty much only need 1 or 2 exercises per fundamental movement direction. Push, pull, and squat. You don't need to hit every single grip on the pull-up bar for 5 sets of 10 kind of thing. As long as you got a couple basic push and pull, you're probably good. So I'm willing to bet you may have some redundancy in your workouts. That's why they're taking so long. I doubt the rest periods are going to make that much of a difference, unless you are really resting quite a bit. One of the things that I used to do with a lot of playground workouts is what I call a self-timing mechanism. So I would do a set on like a pull-up bar on the playground, and then I would walk around the playground, and by the time I got back, I'd do the other set. So if I needed more rest, I would walk slower. If I wanted to get a little faster, I'd kind of jog around or stuff. But it prevented me from going on my phone and doing this, which eats up a ton of time. And one of my hard and fast rules when it comes to working out is don't look at your phone when you're working out. It's like you start working out, the phone is off. Unless your workout log is on your phone or something, but you do not pull up Instagram. You do not start checking email. If anything, one of the best things about exercise is that it's a small part of your day where you can say, okay, life, shut up. Everybody, time out. Work, don't bother me. Other people, don't talk to me. Everything like just blinders on, and you get to actually be distraction free for a little bit if you so choose. But you got to put up those digital walls a little bit. All right. Let me get to the last couple ones here and answer some questions before I bugger on out. Poppy is asking, saying, yes, true. The anterior tilt thing also makes sense to me. I also think it's my brain trying to focus on keeping everything tight. I just wind up losing tension on everything. Could be also a fatigue thing. So one of the things that I see people doing when it comes to like with push-ups and like, keep your glutes tight, keep your abs tight. And they'll go from tight to really tight. And it's like, no, you're not trying to, be as tight as humanly possible with this. Just have some supportive tension. Supportive tension is a good amount of tension, like when you're carrying a grocery bags or something in your arms are tight, but you're not like, as hard as you possibly can. Maybe tone it down just a smidge. It's saying here, I also have difficulty engaging my glutes even when just walking. Yeah, that's welcome to the club. Lots of people have trouble engaging the glutes. In fact, I would even go so far as a lot of people who think they can engage their glutes well, don't engage it that well. Speaking as experience for me, I started working at, again, this gym that taught a lot of circuit training. And part of the circuits they did was a power workout. And it was all glute, hip extension, hip power, kettlebell swings, that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, I got this kind of thing. And I'm swinging my kettlebell and everything. And the instructor comes up to me and is like, what the heck are you doing? I'm like, kettlebell swings. And he's like, no, like your glutes are barely involved. I'm like, I feel them. they're good. I'm feeling the glutes. He's like, no, they're not engaged. And through other exercises, and then I've figured out the whole overcoming isometrics thing, and I was using that to engage my glutes better. And after a couple of years, I got more engagement. I was like, oh yeah, he's right. I didn't know I had my glutes on. Now they're on. Now they're really working. And even then, a year after that to now, I'm like, oh, now they're working hard. And this is the beautiful thing about muscle tension, is that we can always improve upon the engagement and that neuromuscular proficiency. It's never a case of, yeah, I can work the muscle, I can engage it pretty good. You can always improve upon it. And as I've always said, that neuromuscular proficiency is the key to really making the exercises safer, stronger, and a hell of a lot more effective. And especially more enjoyable as well. All right, folks, I'm starting to lose my voice. I don't know what the heck's going on with, maybe it's just really dry out or something, but I am going to take off and address some other things coming across my plate. If you have other further questions, DM me, Red Delta Project on Instagram. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Check out all the resources down below that I alluded to throughout the entire thing. My book, Micro Workouts, Overcoming Isometrics, the Overcoming Isometrics equipment from World Fit as well. I got tons of videos on all this stuff, the Grind Style Calisthenics workout program, and my Overcoming Isometrics playlist is all for free on the channel as well. And I really appreciate everybody's attention. So thank you so very, very much. And I'll talk to you next time. Till then, be fit, live free.